Speaker, we've got Benjamin Killen. So Ben is a man on a mission to enrich the lives of every single human being on the planet by allowing them to master the internal environment and the way they experience the world. For the last 10 years, he has been experimenting with what it takes to optimize human function, working with people from all ages and the walks of lives, from elite athletes to corporation to corporate professionals. His passion stems from his work as an exercise professional, along with his own experience of transformation, borrowing from all areas of applied science. Currently, Ben works within a physiotherapy practice as an exercise scientist, along with working as personal trainer and corporate health consultant in the Sydney CBD. He's offering a free discovery call to anyone in the audience today who is interested, and he's always happy to hear from people to help solve real problems. With the firm belief that human beings have the capacity to achieve anything, Ben hopes to share the science to back it up. Please welcome the big, friendly giant, Benjamin Killen.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Took the words right out of my mouth. The Biological Rulebook. How to win at the game of life. So, where would you be if you could spend your time doing anything that it was that you needed to do to achieve what you wanted? What if you could be like the person that you idolize most in life? Look the way you've always wanted to look, feel the way you've always wanted to feel, and think the way that you've always known that it could be possible to think. When was the last time you set out to do something and wasn't quite satisfied with the outcome? What if you could achieve great things, just like those in society who have achieved great things before you? You see, it's my belief that the only separator between us achieving what we want and not is choosing to understand the individual biological rules that are written within each of us and defining exactly what it is that we want, and then combining those two things to get exactly what it is that we need to do to achieve. But we must play by the rules. And so, who the hell am I? Well, in my career, as Maggie stated, I work as an exercise professional, formerly working with elite athletes. And currently, I work with those everyday athletes, the corporate professionals who are at the front lines of mental performance and achieving what human beings are capable of. And to be quite honest, I'm completely insane. I'm standing here wearing a pair of barefoot shoes. 10 minutes ago, I was meditating in the back to get myself ready for this. I regularly get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, have a 5-minute cold shower every single day, and I recently got my whole blood panel tested just to put myself on a highly restrictive gut healing diet. But it hasn't always been this way. And the method behind the madness is that I understand the individual impact that each decision that I make has on my biological rulebook and how it can push me toward doing what I want to do in life. Now, with the people that I work with today, I've had 10 years of experimenting with what it takes to optimize the human function, first through myself and then in my work. And I've realized that the difference between the corporate professionals that I work with on a daily basis and those elite athletes is not too great at all. It's about the number of total demands that they face, and I'd put it to you that the corporate professionals that I work with on a daily basis actually encounter far more stress and have far more to deal with than those elite athletes. But the key that remains true throughout, regardless of who I'm working with, is this: our structure dictates our function. We must play by the rules. And so that then leads me on to my first rule. And this is the concept of first principles. Now, it's been alluded to earlier by some of the more scientific presentations that physics is the key to life. Now, at our most fundamental level, we exist as a conglomeration of nanoscopic particles, a series of protons, neutrons, and electrons that all form together to form atoms, which then conglomerate to create the individual biological structures that you see manifesting before your eyes. This represents the infinite complexity of the human system. And the reason I use the term system is because our human body is a discrete system that has billions of interactions going on a moment-to-moment basis, And this system then interacts with the outside world. Now, as we can imagine, the infinite number of permutations that could go on with our system in reaction to the outside world is, well, just that, infinite. And this represents the fundamentals of understanding the biological rulebook. Understanding the way that you can manipulate the interaction of nanoscopic particles on a moment-to-moment basis is how we create change within our bodies and become closer to the people that we want to be. But we must learn and then play by the rules. And that then leads me on to my second rule. And this is the concept of specific adaptation syndrome, otherwise known as the SAID principle. Now, this principle is based fundamentally on general adaptation syndrome. Now, I'm sure anyone that's been through high school science would have some idea of this concept. What it states is that us as human beings, or our system, is in a constant state of balance, which is otherwise known as homeostasis. Now, this homeostasis is in constant motion, as outlined before, because the system is so complex, it's impossible to achieve. So what then happens is each stimulus that is imparted upon the system from the outside world creates an alarm. This then leads to exhaustion, and leading to, when allowed for proper recovery, will create a supercompensation, as outlined below. Now, this principle is what separates the most elite performers on the planet from those that are not so elite. Those elite performers were able to expose themselves to a specific stimulus enough to become where they are today. So take the supercompensation principle. This is the fundamental principle that allowed me, as a strength and conditioning coach, to work with athletes on a daily basis to become and make them the best at their individual position. Dave alluded to it earlier. Every time we go into the gym, we get stronger, our muscles grow bigger. And in the specific general adaptation syndrome model, this can be shown as an athlete coming in on week 1 and they're bench pressing. And they're able to bench press 100 kilograms. Then the next week they come back and they're able to bench press 102 kilograms. Well, what went on there? Well, what we can see is the alarm of the bench press was significant enough to generate a response within the body, which then led to a resistance to deal with that specific response, which then led to exhaustion, creating muscle damage and neural fatigue. And then, when allowed for proper recovery, that athlete was able to come back, grow more muscle tissue, become more efficient at lifting that weight, and get better. And this general adaptation syndrome isn't just exclusively limited to weightlifting. And as I'll outline further, it can be adapted in all forms of our system. And once again, this response that is generated from the alarm is not a function of the external stimulus. It is a function of the internal response to that stimulus. Just like when we take a medicine and we create a response within the body, that is exactly what we're doing every time we impart a demand on the system. It is generated internally, and this is the capacity we have to change. When we understand the internal demands that we're placing on our system, we can change anything. So the key for this is that internal responses generate our adaptation. Well, did you know that the way that you perceive a stimulus can significantly change the adaptation that's created? Take, for example, the last time you were driving on the road and someone cut you off. Did you think, oh, I'm so sick of this, I'm going to drive and tailgate him and get back and honk my horn and get nice and close to him? Or do you think, geez, pretty lucky to be here in my car, I've got the day, I'm all finished. I mean, maybe I'm stuck in traffic, but at least my favourite music's playing and, oh, geez, I hope that person's okay. I wonder if they're alright, they must be rushing to the hospital or something. Oh, well, it doesn't matter, because at least I'm nice and safe in my car. I mean, there's a fat chance that that happened in today's world, but this represents a fundamental technique that's used in the field of positive psychology, and it's otherwise known as upward comparison. And this technique represents a completely different internal response to the exact same external stimulus. It was shown in a recent mindfulness meditation trial that went for 30 days that individuals who participated were able to upregulate 8 to 9 genes associated with health and longevity. they were also able to lengthen their telomeres. Now, I'm not too sure if everyone in the room is overly familiar with biology. However, telomeres are the structures that exist on the end of our chromosomes that are directly associated with our life expectancy. By lengthening our telomeres, they were able to gain years to their life. And this is the power that the internal response that we know how to generate through concepts such as mindfulness meditation can have. And it helps to articulate how two individuals can smoke for their whole lives and yet have radically different life expectancies. And it's estimated, as we have up on the slide, that 1 to 5% of diseases are genetically predetermined. The other 95 to 99% of diseases are simply correlated. The key is that this is only a correlation. Think type 1 diabetes or cystic fibrosis. These are genetically predetermined. All other conditions, as I said, are simply correlated. And how is this possible? Well, that then leads me on to the third rule. And this is the concept of epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is defined as the study of changes in organisms caused by modification of gene expression itself rather than manipulation of the genetic code. Now, what this basically dictates is that our genes can either be turned on or off. And this is how adaptation works. We are simply correlated with most of the genes that create who we are. And the decision that our cells make through our genes means that our blueprint of life has choices, except our cells don't have brains. Instead, the brain becomes the way that you live your life, the external stimuli that you choose to impart upon your system, and the internal response that you have to that stimulus. And once again, genes are the coding mechanism that creates the biological structure that you see standing before your eyes. So once we learn how to have an impact on the individual genes that we have, we can become far closer to the person that we want to be. And so, if you haven't worked it out yet, the image that you see up on the slide, albeit a slightly old image, is an image of me when I was younger. And the story of why I decided to change represents why I'm so fundamentally passionate about helping people to master their internal environment and understand this concept. And it's because I see the impact that it can have, not only on the person that you become and the way that you look and feel, but the way that you fundamentally experience the world and interact with others. And so, I'd like to set the scene. The moment that I decided to change, I was on a school camp, and it was one of those classic school camps where the teachers felt like slave drivers. They'd been whipping us all week, and we were sick of it, such is life as a privileged young teenager. And we were just copping shtick all week, and the camp had one of those classic cliched pools with the fence that was just a little bit too high to get into, and we knew that if we got into that pool, it would mean instant reprimanding and we'd all be probably expelled or something worse, locked in jail for life. And so we didn't dare go in there, but it was stinking hot. It was probably like average of 30, 40 degrees throughout the week. And so on the last day, we're thinking, geez, we've been promised this pool all week, they better let us in there. And so anyway, there we are on the hike, and the teachers give us the good news at the end, finally. Yeah, everyone, you're allowed to get into the pool. Everyone runs back to their rooms, grabs their swimmers, grabs everything they brought. Literally, this is the only thing we wanted to be at this camp for. We'd literally been waiting all week. And everyone was ecstatic. That was everyone, except for me. You see, getting into the water was something that led to frequent self-loathing for me. And I was lucky enough to grow up with amazing parents on a really nice place near the beach. And yet I would seldom be seen down there, as the thought of exposing what I thought was a hideous, white, pale body, blubbery, something that constantly gripped me and took me down a path to fighting a constant war in my head. And the times that I would get respite from this would be when I would be maybe occasionally playing sport or eating food, surprise, surprise. playing video games. And these were the only times when I kind of forgot who I was. Every time I looked back in the mirror, I realised, and I came back to reality. I didn't think I had the capacity to change, and it really knocked me around in the way that I experienced the world and the way that I did things. I struggled to get along with others. I mean, girls may as well have been from another planet at that stage, and I never ever thought that I would be able to change. I just thought that I'd be stuck like this forever. And so, at that moment, when I was sitting outside of the pool, not getting in because I'd forgotten my rash shirt, and everyone was looking at me like I was some kind of weirdo, I knew I had to make a change. And so I did what any self-respecting teenager would do, and I turned to the muscle magazines, Men's Fitness, and I started reading. And while the decisions I made and the things that I did certainly weren't the greatest decisions, and they certainly weren't the best things I could have been doing for my health, the key was that I decided I wasn't going to play the victim any longer. And so day by day, moment by moment, and decision by decision, I started to change the way I ate. I started to exercise a little bit more. And I started to change my beliefs about myself and the way that I looked. My diet started to improve my biochemistry, which then had an impact on my brain and the way that worked. And it worked in a constant feedback loop. And it wasn't one single variable that had the impact. Everything worked in unison. And that's a big quote that I'd like to get across, is that there's no such thing as a monotherapy. Natural therapies have their place along with surgery and more traditional allopathic medicine. And in this case, the way that I ate and the way that I exercised actually impact the way my brain was structured, and I started to form a feedback loop that created a journey for me to become closer to the person that I wanted to be. And this was through trial and error. And this is the journey that we can all walk, and we all must walk if we want to create change. But the key is that we have to define what it is that we want to do. And now my goals are completely different, and the way that I live my life is completely different, and it will change throughout my life. However, I understand the biological rulebook and the decisions that I need to make to create what it is that I want. And so that leads me to the fourth rule. And to answer the question of what can adapt, the answer is absolutely everything. You see what you see up on the slide represents the principle of neuroscience, otherwise known as neuroplasticity. Now, this concept dictates that our brain has the capacity to change based on stimulus. And this image that you see up on the slide was a brain scan taken from another mindfulness meditation trial. And if you were to take one thing away from this presentation today, it would be this. Google mindfulness meditation, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Look up on YouTube, there's hundreds of meditations, and begin mindfully meditating. Because now you understand the impacts that you can have on your body. Understand the impacts that you can have, and then start to think about how this is changing the way you experience the world. And this is the key to understanding our biological rulebook. You can have a fundamental impact, not only on the way your body works and your brain works, but the way that you experience the world. And in this trial, it was shown that over 30 days, individuals who participated in a mindfulness meditation were able to increase the amount of grey matter they had within their brains. Now, I'm not too sure if we're overly familiar with neuroscience. However, grey matter is directly associated with IQ, along with information processing. And it was shown that on autopsy of Albert Einstein's brain, the significant differentiator between his and that of a normal individual was the amount of grey matter that his brain had. Now, I don't know whether or not that's a function of his genes or the way that he chose to express his genes throughout his life. However, the key was that there was a difference. Will you choose to take the glass half full or glass half empty in this case? So once again, the answer is just about everything. Take the image you see up on the slide, two 70-year-old males, both living two radically different lives, and you guessed it, two radically different bodies. One had a significantly greater amount of muscle mass, significantly greater amount of bone density, and a significantly less amount of fat mass. Now, what was not shown in this trial And this is one of the limitations of research, is because we focus on a reductionist model when the body, as we outlined in Rule 1, is an infinitely complex system. I can guarantee you that the individual who lived a more active life had a significantly different quality of life and a significantly different way of experiencing the world. I can guarantee their brain is different. And so once again, to outline the power that epigenetics can have, the same individual, through completely different external stimuli at two different parts of his life, and a radically different physical manifestation. Nothing said about the quality of mind or the state of mind, but yet again, it would be radically different. And so my question to you is, do you have time to waste? What are you doing? Who are the people that are choosing to write your rulebook? Do they understand this concept? Are these the people that are helping you with advice on your goals? Do you understand the rulebook? Do they have in mind what it is that you want to achieve? Because for someone who is looking to look the best that they possibly can, someone who is looking to run a marathon, and someone who is looking to achieve the most that they can in life, are going to have three radically different training programs, as there are a series of different stimuluses that needed to be imparted to achieve these things. And so, the idea that I could still be operating at 80% is what drives me and fascinates me to continue pursuing this concept. And while I'm no means perfect and nowhere near perfect, every single day that goes by, I understand my rulebook a little better and I start to write my own story. And so, will you choose to take the red pill and see how deep the rabbit hole goes? Or will you take the blue pill and continue on the path toward insanity, making the same decisions over and over, not respecting what you exactly want to achieve, not respecting the rule book that is governed within you? You see, we've just scratched the surface of what it means to be a human being today, and in each moment when we have a choice to become closer to the person that we want to be, I leave the question, what are you doing? What are you going to do? What choice are you going to make? And so I want to leave you with one final question. Do you have a vision for something greater in this life? Are you going to choose to play by the rules? Thank you.